Hi, welcome everyone. They say the last will be first, and that rule proved true today, because this is one of the last, you could say, Arteon R liftbacks built in Europe, because it's the end of November 2023, shortly after this car stopped being produced, and at the same time it's the first Arteon R to appear on my channel. You're very welcome.
Hello everyone, my name is Arteon R. Just as Zakar already said, here we are dealing with one of the last Arteon R models from November 2023. I brought this car from Germany last year. It was driven by the director of one of the dealerships. It was a low mileage car, like new. Previously, I also drove an Arteon 190 horsepower with front wheel drive, also gasoline. I wanted something more powerful with all wheel drive. In Poland, it was hard to find a car that met my expectations because either they had high mileage or some kind of damage. And that led me to the German market, where I found this particular car, which I imported to Poland myself. The car differs from the standard Arteon in a few things on the outside. First of all, there are larger 20-inch rims, bigger brakes, and distinctive blue brake calipers. At the back, we have a dual exhaust pipe, which is not just for show, and instead of the Arteon badge, we have the R-Series logo. Under the hood, there's a 2-liter TSI engine with 320 horsepower and 420 Nm of torque. According to the manufacturer, this allows for acceleration from 0 to 100 in 4.9 seconds. However, in this particular unit, the acceleration I managed to achieve was about 4.3 or 4 seconds. I suspect that we have at least 350 horsepower here, if not more. The car was brought to Poland in October 2024 with a mileage of about 12,000 kilometers. Right now it has 25,000 kilometers on it. As for fuel consumption, unfortunately it's quite fuel hungry, because depending on the route, it can use anywhere from 9 to as much as 12 liters per 100 kilometers. And I suspect that if you pushed it even harder, it wouldn't mind using even more. However, in the city, the fuel consumption stays within the range of 8 to 9 liters per 100 kilometers. When it comes to maintenance, the manufacturer recommends changing the oil every 30,000 kilometers. However, any reasonable user will do it, let's say, every 15,000. In this particular unit, nothing has happened yet due to the mileage, and I think nothing will happen. Because with my previous Arteon, I drove almost 200,000, and basically, apart from regular servicing and maybe changing the spark plugs, nothing had to be done or repaired because it simply didn't break down. As for the interior, we have Volkswagen's virtual cockpit here, and unfortunately touch-sensitive buttons on the steering wheel, which often cause something to turn on unnecessarily. As I already mentioned, this is my second Arteon. It mainly differs from the first one in terms of finish, because this is the R version, so we have accent stitching on the doors, on the seats, and also the distinctive logo on the steering wheel. Compared to its predecessor, the biggest change for the worse, in my opinion, is the touch-sensitive buttons basically everywhere. Because physical buttons are only on the lower console, while everywhere else we have touch-sensitive buttons, which unfortunately are difficult to operate while driving and unfortunately require getting used to when switching from one car to another. In my opinion, a huge advantage is the electronically controlled seats, both for the driver and the passenger, as well as the heated rear bench, which my daughters are happy to use in the winter.
Volkswagen has always been proud of its Ergo Comfort seats and has always clearly emphasized that this is a unique option and very useful for long journeys. And that's really true. They have always been really exceptionally comfortable in these test cars that I have driven. Volkswagen's pride is clear from the seat itself, as the Ergo Comfort sticker is the first thing we see when opening the door. It's going to be good. And since we're talking about seats, everything really depends on them when it comes to space. I'm moving very close to the console. I have the same amount of knee space here on both the right and left sides, and the console is concave, so it really gives me plenty of room to tuck in under the steering wheel. Of course, sliding under the steering wheel endlessly doesn't make sense, because then when I open the door I have trouble getting under the steering wheel, so I don't even go that deep. As you can see, I'm sitting properly in relation to the steering wheel. Above my head, well, I'd say it's a tight fit, but we have a sunroof here. That also takes away a few centimeters. My friends, the partner of this episode is Mubi.pl, which is a well-known way to buy cheap insurance. This comparison tool checks offers from many different insurance companies and gives you a ranking of the cheapest offers. By purchasing through Mubi.pl/Zakar, after buying a policy, you can also get 100 PLN cashback. Check it yourself, even if your policy isn't expiring right now. After entering your car's details, you'll get an overview of the whole market in a few seconds, but be careful. The prices displayed will be before deducting the mentioned cashback. Compare it to your last policy cost. It might be useful later. The link is in the description. And let's not overpay for insurance. And now I'm literally jumping onto the back seat on the fly. I don't have to worry at all about finding space because I'm sitting behind myself with so much room in front of my knees. This is exactly a big car that has been well designed. It's a bit worse above my head, but that's because of the body lines. I'll tell you now, there will be a bit less headroom in the back. And that's exactly how it is here. Let's say I have to slouch a little bit. So in the back, there's not really enough space for someone who's 2 meters tall. There's a big tunnel in the middle here, just like in Volkswagen. So I think this space is really comfortable for 4 people. Although here, of course, we have a 5th seat belt. Theoretically, you could seat someone here, but I don't think it really makes much sense. There are also comfortable armrests, and like in a Volkswagen, a ski pass-through, among other features. We'll talk about that in a moment when we open the trunk.
For a car with a sporty design, the trunk in the Arteon is huge. It's comparable to the trunk in the Superb. A family with 2 kids can easily go out of town with all their luggage. An interesting feature here is the built-in factory tow hook.
We start with the basic comfort mode, and we'll just calmly cruise through Warsaw and talk about those broken off 0.6 seconds to 100. How is that possible? For me, on the German side, someone was tinkering with something here, because I understand that the factory can throw in a gift, and they often do. But how much do you have to add to go from 4.9 to 4.3?
Whatever they did it so cleverly that the warranty is still valid.
I specifically started in comfort mode to feel how much it responds to the gas during calm, normal driving. And I'm pressing the gas even just a bit harder, a bit deeper. And it doesn't just take off on me, it doesn't run away. It's like you wanted comfort, you get comfort.
It's comfortable.
And I was just wondering if it would downshift, and it doesn't downshift either. After all, this is a gearbox that can downshift, but no. You have comfort. So I already like that, because obviously when we buy a car, we look at those headline numbers. However, in most situations, we drive using the ones at the bottom. And really, on a daily basis, when we buy a car, it's the combination of these two that gives us satisfaction, not just one or the other.
Well, in reality, you can only use the full power on a dynamometer. Interestingly, we also have DCC here. And in comfort mode, well, it feels like you're riding on a soft couch. You can really feel the road only in sport mode or air mode. Interestingly, the car always starts in sport mode, and that's important. And if you leave it in air mode, individual or comfort, it will still go back to sport mode after restarting the ignition. Which personally annoys me a bit, because every time I have to click through to my favorite settings.
And do you drive in comfort mode or more in individual mode?
I prefer individual mode, but it's a slightly modified comfort mode with slightly different transmission and engine settings.
What were you looking for when you bought the R. Was it simply about having a Volkswagen that's not like most others? Or was it about having all-wheel drive? Was it about horsepower?
Mainly it was about all-wheel drive.
There's also a 280 horsepower version.
There was a 280 horsepower one, but I was looking for a relatively new example. Because at that time I was driving to Germany quite a lot. That's why I did almost 200,000 kilometers with the previous car in 2.5 years. But things changed professionally, so now I don't go to Germany anymore. The car basically just sits either at my house or at the airport. The comfort is incredible. And you can already see that even in the standard version. Even the standard suspension is tuned in such a way that on the highway you just glide.
And what do you do? Because I used to work in Germany too.
In Dortmund, I work in consulting in the data center industry.
Ah, so it's also a bit of IT indirectly?
I mean, not IT, more like the construction of data center facilities. Oh, but from that side, I don't work in IT, but more as supervision over the general contractor. On behalf of, for example, the investor. All for AI? Yes, for AI.
Artificial intelligence. And a lot of it is being built. Exactly. Sometimes by asking how to properly brew coffee to ChatGPT. People aren't aware of how many things are happening, but also how much had to happen before such an answer could be given, right?
But also more and more AI is being introduced into cars right now as well. And Seller already has it completely. This will be a trend that will also, well, keep developing, I think. And maybe not in a worrying direction, but definitely a thought-provoking one. Whether do we want to go in this direction?
I want Krasanic Arteon, go ahead and tell us.
I don't know if I would be able to trust a machine on the road. It basically comes down to that, because if I have an accident or, well, you know, we are able to find the cause of that accident. And if we get into some software errors here, for example, let's say artificial intelligence, well, it's hard to prove something like that. And even if you do prove it, whose fault is it really?
Because up until now it was solved by an algorithm that was known in advance. So you could hard code it into the algorithm, like if something happens, turn right, stop, or accelerate. However, AI is like a black box. A certain amount of information goes in. Even the creators don't know what will come out.
There isn't really a specific algorithm.
Exactly. There's no rule. 46, 48, 50, huh? That's how I remember it. A car should drive. Nothing made a sound, nothing moved. It turned with no resistance on the steering wheel. To the left, then to the right, obediently. Zero oversteer, zero understeer, zero reaction from those electronic systems. We avoided that adventure, that obstacle, and we keep going. There's nothing to comment on. It felt just like being in a simulator. Beautiful. Well, what can you do? We were in sport mode, let's just confirm that. So to sum up, because we're heading back to base now, you switched from Arteon to Arteon. You just picked a couple of gadgets like all-wheel drive and a few more horsepower, and there you go, you have a car.
And you have a car
that you trust from the start, because you already have experience. And maybe you're not experiencing right now what it's like to drive a Nissan Qashqai or any other brand.
I drove a Qashqai, the 2011 version, and my friend and I joked that it drives like a dump truck, okay?
They're legends. I mean, the last Qashqai I drove was probably from 2018. I remember how incredibly comfortable the suspension was and how incredibly bad it was at turning.
It just couldn't.
Nothing has changed since Qashqai, no? Okay. All right, so going back to the Arteon from Qashqai, we didn't want to talk about Qashqai anymore, just about the Arteon. All that's left to say is that this is a pretty reliable way to be happy with your car. Try something, see that it works for you, and stick with it.
Rather evolution than revolution.
Exactly. Well, you probably made a good decision. You're satisfied.
I'm very satisfied.
Thank you for presenting the car. I'm sorry
for interrupting. Thank you. I'm satisfied, and I think I'll stick with scales in the future because I like the suspension. I won't have another Arteon, exactly. But somewhere deep down, my heart still leans in that direction.
And if you don't drive but just fly, then at this point, the ID.7 Touring GTX, I drove it recently. Brilliant car.
These electric cars don't convince me.
I know it's electric, but I also sat in it. I've already driven the ID.7, it'll be boring. Well, GTX, but it'll still be boring. I didn't want to give the keys back. You have to try it. Well, never mind. Thank you very much for presenting the car. Thank you all for watching this episode. Remember to subscribe and see you in the next videos. Bye.